Yes, I know, right? It's like 121 show. Is Mr. Edward St. Ange from Flip 2, and also Mr. Robert Cole from Rock Cheetah. And we're hopefully going to have Darlene Rondeau with us. She's been having some technical things going on with her audio, so we're hopefully be able to get that resolved so she can join us as well. It's a real treat to be able to have her join us. With that, gentlemen, how was Thanksgiving?
Good actually.
I'm still full. No.
Yeah, I haven't eaten since. Luckily
I'm still shopping.
Hey, Amazon had their best Black Friday day ever.
Cyber Monday was the biggest day. Yeah. On record.
I guess maybe because I always perpetually shop that I didn't really, take big advantage of the Cyber Monday or the Black Friday. But it was kind of interesting to watch the marketing strategy of some of these companies. Actually on the show on Friday, I was talking about the fact that as a hotelier marketing person, I tend to stay away from that time period. And yet I saw it being featured that travel is featureability. One of the things to look for after Cyber Monday is travel deals.
Yeah, I saw quite a bit. I saw quite a bit of hotels doing Cyber Monday deals.
And it was a bit of a surprise to me because I've always usually approached this time of year as being a bit of a white noise time. It's very challenging to get in that space or in somebody's head if they're not already pre-planning specific travel to incite them to be interested in travel to your location. Unless, of course, you're looking at weather changes and you always have those campaigns ready that, hey, it's perpetually cold where you're at, come down to a warm seasonal area or something. But to actually be offering unique deals other than gift certificates and things like that are kind of perennial come October. But I don't know. What do you guys do? Are you amping up more of the advertising opportunities for hoteliers this time of year, or do you see an increased potential, or what?
I really look at it as if you have an audience where you have a high degree of loyalty and things like that, and high levels of engagement, I think there's some opportunities. I think otherwise, boy, it's almost like advertising at the Super Bowl sort of thing. The payback is rough, trying to break, high cost of entry to break through the noise.
Holly joining us.
Wow.
See, I actually think if you're in a destination that starts to light up quite a bit of activity, I think it's a worthwhile time to kick off, but I wouldn't put a lot of budget into standing up against even more players competing for the consumer's attention on a Black Friday.
Maybe participate, do something, but don't punch it in a big, don't count on it to make your booking numbers for a late November or something like that. So
Right. Hey, Holly.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So I just came in and I saw Darlene left the room.
Well,
she was like, Holly, here I'm out.
Yeah.
She's like, oh man.
She's having an audio issue, which is sad because she tried to join us, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, and she was having a camera issue, and now she's having an audio issue where she can't hear us. I don't know. I have no idea why.
Robert, you have a Surface Pro. Do you have to reset your camera every couple of weeks?
Yes, I do.
Disable your...
Reset my camera every couple of weeks? No, I have to turn off my back-facing camera to even get this to work because it defaults to the back-facing camera.
I have to disable it all the time.
Oh yeah, that's the only way to make it work. For some reason, they haven't put a switch in, which makes no sense to me. And I've been on their insider program for a long time, but I don't know. I've mentioned that since I got it.
Darlene, can you hear us?
Microsoft must have a very good reason not to do that.
I feel certain you're right.
Up on top of the microphone.
This is a new segment. We can do pantomime issues.
We've been able to hear her, Lauren, as she's been coming on. She can't hear us.
Maybe an earphone jack, if it's in the side of the computer, maybe that might change over the output.
Yeah. Do you have a headphone jack plugged in, Darlene? She can't hear us.
No,
so why are we offering suggestions?
Here, let's type.
So, Lauren put out some interesting topics.
You're not
I
kidding.
did.
You really did.
Not nearly as interesting as the topics I'm sending to you right
Yeah, but yours are invalid. You missed the cutoff.
Yeah.
Cutoff is 11:29 and a half.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I thought I put them on less. I'm trying to get into the habit of not bringing my laptop home. I'm trying to be that person that doesn't have the excuse to bring the laptop and crack it open at home and do more work. But I've been trying to do it on the iPad. So I put all the agenda items together only to realize that it didn't actually go out. So not a brilliant idea. I think I have to go back to bring the laptop. I'm going to tell Darlene to maybe put her headphones onto it. But pick something out of the bag. What is it? I mean, Robert, you have a few that you haven't shared yet. But the ones that I threw out there, what caught anybody's eye?
I thought the big one of the big ones was Booking.com's Booking Genius, and you become a Booking Genius if you book 5 reservations with Booking.com, and actually, well, theoretically stay, I suppose. I'm not sure what happens if you just book and don't
So
cancel.
you need to actually book 10 reservations then, because isn't their average cancellation rate about 50%?
50%.
Yeah. Well, no, if you do cancel, you come off, but I'm just not sure what happens if you no show or something like that. I suppose if somebody has, I guess there's some form of guarantee you're going to wind up having to pay. So anyway, it should be somewhat validated stays, but what's happening is, and here I will put up the link.
I think we can hear Darlene. I think we can hear her.
I've been saying that the whole time, Lauren.
Yeah,
She
no.
can't hear us.
She doesn't know that we can hear her.
She doesn't know we can hear
knows.
her.
I told her we can hear her.
Oh, that's no fun, Ed.
Does she know we can see her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But hey, it wouldn't be this show if there wasn't technical
A technical glitch. Yes, exactly.
Google thing. We would be breaking tradition if there was if everything ran smooth technically on this show. It would be like, what? The world's about to come to an end. Hell hath doth freezing over.
Booking Genius. I don't know about it.
Okay, so what happens is if you make 5 reservations on Booking.com, you become a genius, and they will start giving you discounted rates, right? And so the hotels can participate in the program. You get basically a marketing function where you can get access to offer deals to the best Booking.com customers.
Or the general public, because, they're basically putting it into Meta.
Well, no, and that's what the issue is now.
Right.
Now, this is beginning to show up in MetaSearch. So,
and I think this begs the question of, should Meta be used for what's basically a qualified rate?
Right. Yeah.
Because that's what Booking.com has created here with the Booking Genius, is a qualified rate. You need to have booked, maybe have stayed 5 times in order to qualify for this rate. Therefore, it is not a publicly available rate.
Right. Now, as soon as you said that, it hit me. It's like, yeah, right, because now it's a qualified rate.
Now, the question is if there's some validation going on or something like that, or if it's some sort of targeting where you can also say, hey, they're on our list, and then, give it to Google. That sort of, I don't know, though. That's still, the jury's out on that, right? Okay. Which, if it was, that is actually some pretty cool functionality, which is, I think, where everything heads, which is you're eligible for this. Here's the best rate that you're eligible for, and you're a Marriott frequent guest. You should get the rewards rate. Oh, you have the Hilton one. You should get that too, right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: the Honors, book direct rate is hardly a qualified rate. I mean, all you have to do is click yes here.
Sign up. Right.
Yeah. And actually, ironically, I will say,
and exchange your information.
Yeah, but you're doing that to book a reservation anyways. So is that really a hurdle?
Yeah.
No.
They've all expanded the number of members.
But what's actually interesting, I noticed as I've joined now every loyalty program. Who would have seen that coming? That I actually get less email from these companies now.
Spam filter. Check your spam filter.
No, I've looked. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm in a different database now, or because I've stayed at a lot of hotels. I'm not overly brand loyal.
So let's also say the flip side is they may not be capitalizing on having your information either. They're sending you, wow, I've got really relevant, now that I joined the program, I've got really relevant stuff from them. It's so
we better not do anything that'll make them unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Do we think that's possibly what could be happening?
Yeah. I mean, well, you're already doing that by you want your Wi-Fi. You want your Wi-Fi, right? And that sort of thing. And you want your points.
Yeah.
Which is
maybe they just
has nothing to do with loyalty.
Maybe they just watched the show, Ed, and they've taken you off their
The
list.
blacklist.
Maybe they're like, oh God, let's not send Ed anything because even
He'll
if it's
bring it up.
brilliant, he's going to tear it apart. Although I will say, I was actually, I've started to become loyal to a single property here in town, which is
Property, not
unusual
brand
for
or
me.
property.
And it is a branded property.
But wait, just to clarify, you're loyal to the property, not to the brand necessarily.
This is the second time I've stayed at this type of brand. So this is the second location I stayed at, and I considered this location because of how much I liked the other location. It's a Wyndham Grand. And so the Wyndham Grand and Bonnet Creek, which is kind of on Disney property. It's between I-4 and Disney, so it's basically Disney property. So first of all, like price-wise, they're a fraction of the cost of a Disney hotel, and then the Wyndham Grand brand standard seems to be pretty darn high. Like I would put it above a Hilton in like quality. I'd put it. It kind of feels like a Westin from a quality perspective. And the thing that they got me with is they have a room type that who would think you build a hotel near Disney to have a room type that has bunk beds in it.
That's
in
great.
like an almost closet.
Yeah.
And so
That's great.
like it's amazing. So I have a sofa, a king bed, almost closet with no door on the opening with bunk beds in it. For $150 a night is the most I've paid so far. We've
there
stayed
you go.
multiple times. It's brilliant. Brilliant.
Well, it's interesting. Those Wyndham Grands are fundamentally independent, hotels. It's not a soft brand, as far as I know. I think they're full blown.
Well, isn't most of Wyndham
full-blown
franchise anyways? They don't.
It's all franchise anyway. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but they have some good ones. Yeah, Hotel Galvez and Tremont House in Galveston are both really cool independent hotels. Galvez is like right on the beach. It's great. Tremont House is kind of in town and back. They've got. I'm just looking through a list here.
Well,
Westward Look. They actually used to have quite a few more.
The Grand is a brand standard because I stayed in a brand new one in St. Pete or in Clearwater, Florida for a meeting and was really impressed by it. And this one in Bonnet Creek, it's all the same materials and colors and bed. And so there's there's brand standards in it. It's not it's not like a DoubleTree where you can kind of be anything, right?
Yeah, they have Rio Mar in Puerto Rico, which used to be a Westin. They've got Mills House in Charleston. So they've got some really nice properties. Now those aren't really standardized. So it's interesting. They're building, maybe they have a prototype that they're building out on there.
It's a nice prototype. I mean, it feels very Westin-like, and I was always a fan of Westin.
I think if we could make a whole new industry standard, if every hotelier were to treat their guests as if it was Ed, just think of the quality score increases that they would receive.
I don't think most people would like that because I got to be honest with you, I'm tough because I like to stay at like nicer hotels because they generally have nicer beds and pillows and some nicer amenities, but I do not like the luxury hotel service model of being very like
overbearing.
What can we do for you today? If there's anything we can do, like I don't like that. Personally, I don't like the butler service.
You want to be left alone?
I like
unobtrusive.
Unobtrusive. I like the Hampton Inn version of that level of service, which they're friendly and chatty if you engage, but not overly intrusive.
You just hit upon the modicum of most successful restaurateurs is that good service is there when needed and invisible when not, engaged when requested, and not pushed on you when you don't want it. And that's a hospitality thing. It's like, look, you're there when it's needed. Way back in the days, it was the ashtrays being changed, the cigarettes being lit, the plates being removed, and so forth, without having to make their presence known. Right. But by the same token, there to answer a question or to solicit some sort of help. So,
that's not so unusual today, though. I mean, we have been conditioned again by the internet to get what we want, when we want, how we want. And so it's translating now to our service expectations. We want service when we want service. And the rest of the time, we don't want service.
Yeah, be
I
invisible.
think it's evolved.
But there's two keys. One is anticipating the guest needs, and
Right.
then exceeding those expectations. Right. I mean, and that's the real mastery to really wind up with a happy guest. Right.
Yeah.
And what's so tricky today is anticipating guest needs often means having, as one of the articles that you put, Alexa in your room, so you don't again have to talk to a human. You can tell Alexa to send you up some towels.
I still think the whole idea of providing these consumer level devices in your guest room is foolish. Bring your own device is what you should be building. Make it to where no matter what I have on me, whether it's an Android phone that has a personal assistant or an iPhone that has Siri, or if I want to bring my Dot with me, you should be able to support having the functionality that people are craving, that are making hotels think they should put these devices in their room. But you should not be putting these devices in your room for a bunch of reasons. One, it's Amazon, so I laughed when I looked at the article because it's talking about how Amazon wants more hotels putting Echoes and Dots in their rooms. It's because Amazon is getting you to pay them to install access to your guest so that they can expose those guests to Uber Eats and services that actually compete with your services. And you're paying them to do that. And so they're going to monetize that whole side of things. They're going to monetize renting movies, things like that. I mean, so if you're going to do that, don't pay them. Just build the infrastructure to allow people to bring their own device, and you will find a more satisfied guest. Now, on top of that, when someone brings their own device that they know the terms and conditions of, and they've agreed to the terms and conditions of, you have no risk in violating their privacy. However, putting a Google Home or Amazon or any of these devices that are voice assistants, they are publicly listening at all times. And they are, in most cases, bringing that up to server side, which means they are spying on you. And if your guest has not been made aware that these devices do this and they have not agreed to that device's use of that, then I think hotels are opening themselves up for a major set of lawsuits here in the future for violating the privacy expectation of your guests.
So whenever you see anything with Morgan Freeman's picture and there's any text, you hear it in his voice. As soon as I read the Amazon article, I literally heard Ed's voice. They're spying on your customers.
They are.
Ed and Morgan Freeman, I think, similarly.
I don't mind. I don't mind that happens. I'm not upset at that. That's
I am not pleased that you are in my head.
It's actually Ed doesn't like being compared to Morgan Freeman, the actor, more of Morgan Freeman in the role of God.
Yes. Or actually, criminal Morgan Freeman in the Shawshank Redemption. I liked him in that as well.
Darlene, can you hear us? I'm guessing that you can't. No, which is an absolute shame. It's like, was so looking forward to be able to chat. Anyway, yes, I did throw up the article that you referred to. Yeah.
So I do think bring your own device is what hotels should be doing. Everything else the hotel is doing is just inviting a more powerful technology player into the mix to your guest relationship with no agreement. Like, unless these hotels are signing restrictive agreements with these device manufacturers, i.e. Amazon, that they cannot give consumers access to competitive services, which, come on, Amazon would never agree to that. And it would actually upset the consumer by, trying to restrict that. I don't think it's a good move. I think if you're going to do it and you want to avoid guest satisfaction issues, bring your own device and be supportive of that.
I agree. Technologically, it's really tricky for the hotels to support all, especially if they're going to do any sort of integration.
I didn't say it'd be easy. I'm just saying it's the right thing to do.
Oh no! It is. That is the right thing to do. But then there's going to be the pressure to, they can talk into their, and Alexa now works on the Amazon app, at least on Android. I'm sure it's on iOS as well. But you can, all of those things, if you can integrate with all of that knowledge of them and then say, whatever, okay, Google, turn off the lights or something like that. Oh, now Google's going to try to turn off the lights. But okay, Google, stop. I normally say shut up, but all those sorts of things could be really cool. Now, the one thing that may change that is when Apple comes out with their what is it, the HomePod or whatever they're calling their little smart speaker. Somebody's going to go drink the Kool-Aid and go put those in all their rooms and be very cool and try to hit the Apple cohort.
Which again, you're inviting extremely
Absolutely.
advanced players in the monetization game into in between you and your guest.
And Apple says, "Well, welcome to my parlor," said the spider to the fly.
Yes, exactly.
So, what did Alex have to say when I missed the show? Isn't Alice trying to do just that?
No, Alice is trying to make it possible for hotels to interact with their guests the way the guests want to interact. So if a guest wants to SMS, Alice is providing the organizational capabilities for the hotel's staff to actually fulfill that form of communication. And then some, like the service delivery, like it's everything you wouldn't think of when you think like, yeah, it's smart to let guests text us. Well, yeah, except like, how are you going to fulfill it? Like, because text has a near real-time expectation. So how are you going to make sure that your staff will be able to even respond near real time? Then how are you going to make sure that they can actually efficiently fulfill whatever that request is when complete? And that's Alice, pretty much. And they built that after initially trying to build a concierge app and realizing that you can build the functionality, but hotels can't operationally fulfill that type of interaction.
The other great thing they did. Sorry, before you're going to introduce Stuart. Well, you can introduce Stuart first.
Well, yeah, because it's a little rude to have somebody there. And
hey guys,
hi, Stuart.
Hi, Stuart.
What's up?
All right, Robert, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, no, one of the smart things that don't say who Stuart's with or why he's here.
No, just hey, Stuart doesn't need an introduction. It's like Prince or Elvis. One word does it all. Stuart, there it is.
Or Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
No, that's me.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So the really smart strategic thing that Alice did was actually twofold. One was they didn't do any integration into the property management systems or anything. They just focused on really the relatively simple concept of just fulfilling these work order ticket type things. I mean, it was basically a kind of a ticket fulfillment. Event pops up, boom. It's distributed to the person who can deal with it. We monitor it. The issue's closed, and that was it. That was number one. And number two, I think particularly with Alex's background, had a deep hotel background and really understood how the guests behave and what they needed, and didn't build a bunch of other crap in there that just bogs down their product. So they came out with a very good minimum viable product to start off with, and managed to get $35 million from Expedia to then go start building out some of the stuff which is going to be very, very difficult for them to do from now the rough sledding comes in for them. So
all too true. Well, I mean, Mr. Stewart, we have I'm sorry, go ahead, Ollie.
Nope, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Stuart, we know that you have a limited window of time. You've sandwiched us between your cash making machine that you're doing nowadays.
That's right.
It's like
between the bread.
You're dancing again?
Yeah.
He's got that high resolution.
That is,
it
is structured exercise. It's structured exercise where there is a reward
with an
system.
audience.
Wait, Stuart, are you printing 50s or 100s this week?
$50 bills.
Yeah.
Is there something on your mind? Anything you want to?
So I haven't seen any of the topics. I'm kind of piecing together what you guys are talking about and assuming it's mobile app stuff. from the conversation about Alice. You know, one thing that always
Actually,
kind of
no, it's not. By the way, it was.
oh, was not.
That was
It-
my
But it's
question.
good. Take it there.
It
Take it
came-
there. It's
okay.
good.
It
It's
came
good.
from. Well, let's catch him up though, so because I'm
Catch
sure
me
he
up,
has
and then
something
I'll
to say
have
about
some-
this. Came from an article where it was an article saying that Amazon wants more hotels to put echoes in their rooms.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
So you instantly know my.
yeah,
So
He's all
now
for it. He's all for it.
voice.
He can't get enough of it. He just wants it right now.
for
Yeah.
sure.
and yeah, so my argument is you shouldn't be heading down that path to pay very advanced companies to be between you and your guests while they're on property. Instead, you should be building towards a future of supporting bring your own device and understand what the consumer actually wants, why they would want an Echo in their room, and build that functionality to be supported across all types of devices because everyone's traveling with this functionality in their pocket.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things have to happen in that regard, right? There's no question that hotels have to have some kind of voice assistant, like some means to communicate via voice to control devices within the room, whether that's TV, thermostat, lights, right? Because at home, we're becoming accustomed to that. And it's exactly like Wi-Fi was. When Wi-Fi became prevalent in the home, we started demanding it in hotels because I don't want to go pay $100, $200, $300 a night to stay at a hotel that doesn't
To
have
have
the
to
same,
walk 2 steps.
but that
Right.
doesn't have the
I
same
mean-
convenience that my house has, right? It's like running water. It's like electricity. It's like Wi-Fi. If voice is a part of my life and I'm used to it, I'm not going to go and stay at a hotel that doesn't have it. So
Right.
the challenge we're in now is the technology is very separated, right? You've got different people competing in the ecosystem, different device technology, but essentially they're all trying to do the same thing. So whether we bring our own device in that it's our smartphone that communicates to the thermostat, I don't know, but I think there has to be some kind of collaboration that says there's a universal methodology for hotels to integrate with all the things going on in the hotel.
Well, I mean,
If it-
It's
fortunately,
basically a services,
doesn't-
a
there
services
there
layer.
are standards in home automation
For sure.
protocol.
Yeah,
So
for
I mean, it actually wouldn't be overly difficult to build the last mile, meaning it can take a command and execute command,
right.
and then you would only have to build to the most popular, voice systems, which
For
are
sure.
there's only 3 that you really would need to check a
Right.
box for, and you
Well,
would
and
get.
there's a couple
Yeah,
of hotel
but-
specific, like Angie is trying to get into the hotel space, right, with their own proprietary hospitality device, and it looks pretty decent. So I think I envision a future where you go into your hotel and they say the keyword to access the voice is whatever, it's Marriott. Do this, but the commands are going to be the same whether you're at a Hilton or a Marriott or an independent. Turn the temperature down to 72, and I can walk into any hotel room in the world and I can say keyword do this and it's going to happen. That's where we're going to end
but-
up.
Right. So I'm saying
Yeah,
skip the
poss-
crap where you
But
buy
that doesn't exist now, right? So I mean, I think there's a novelty in I stayed recently in a property that had an Echo, and my kids loved it, because they like using it, and I don't do all this secret stuff that Ed does, so I'm not too worried about the privacy side. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think every hotel room now should have some kind of voice device, even if it's a gimmick, and should have Netflix on every TV. It's what people expect.
Well, no, but I think the real interesting part though is tapping into the wealth of information and the personalization that comes with that assistant though, because that's where they can really translate everything that it knows about them. And that's where I think you run into the bump in the road where I don't think, I think technically the hotels can build a services layer, right? And do some very interesting things to integrate with things and get the voice commands and then channel them into the right thing. But at some point, there's going to have to be a licensing arrangement where you get access to, or you need access to Google or Apple or Microsoft or, whoever, right? Amazon, any of, Facebook has all these different groups. And that they aren't just going to sit there going, sure, use it and you're tapping. It's going to be, oh, no, you got to share all the information we are going to be running the show for this, because for them not to do that is foolish. They've got all the intellectual property and capital and connection for that. Their customer just happens to be staying with you, right? I would say would be their perspective, right? It's our guy. He's just hanging out with you. So sure, we'll share some information. Yeah. But you might have to pay for it. Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah.
They might not charge you because they just
I
just want people to be ingrained
Amazon's
in that
game.
experience.
Amazon's game is they want to be ever present and introduced to new users.
That's
to
right.
Book them. That's why they want more hotels to do this, because they're turning the hotels into their sales force, giving the hotels nothing for it. They're getting the hotels to pay them for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And like it's just
to change the model completely,
Right.
because Stuart, having Netflix in every room, I bet Amazon would really like Amazon Video in
For
all
sure.
those rooms. And you're at a Residence Inn with a kitchen. Hey, how about Whole Foods stock up the fridge
Well,
for you,
it-
because we know what you like and what you eat. And hey, you're on this special diet.
Yeah.
We can get all that stuff for you because we already know what it is.
It follows the Apple model, which is you're changing people's behavior. I mean, Amazon was the first to really make market presence with the voice control and so forth, and they just want to keep perpetuating that so that they turn into a person that or entity that is constantly in your daily culture.
Mhm.
So yeah, putting you in hotels and so forth. Yeah.
Well, the Apple model is more. Have you seen a commercial chicken farm sort of thing where you got the cages and the people and they kind of feed you what they want? That's more of the Apple model, I think.
Simplicity, clarity. Hey, I'll tell you what.
And the
last
chickens
night,
are very happy.
very happy chickens. Very happy
Because
chickens.
they
I'm a
don't
happy
know
chicken.
anything different.
I think
I'm a
many
happy
villains
chicken.
across
They
many stories
love it.
have pointed out how human beings ultimately want to be ruled. So yeah, okay.
I'm a happy chicken. Last night,
But
I got a
listen,
call,
I'm just gonna
they got me on
call
my
up
phone
the big
whole time.
problem. The big problem that
Just keep
hotels
laying the
shouldn't
eggs and there's no trouble, Lauren.
hotels shouldn't be asleep to, and this is the big problem is this: Amazon has already dabbled in consumer travel and being part of the booking. They will
5
come back.
times.
Yes, they will come back. So let me ask you this, hotels: if Expedia put out voice control for your room, would you buy it? Because
They
if the
would,
answer is no way.
no, they would. They would. Are you kidding?
You think so?
Yes, I absolutely think
Some
so.
would.
I don't. You'd never see the brands do it, but the brands are literally doing that with Amazon and Google.
Mhm.
And here's the thing: they're going to be like, "What? You're going to get involved in the booking journey now too? We can't have all these devices in there."
Wait,
Oops, sorry,
stop.
you've already
Yeah.
set your consumer expectation. Ha!
I think it depends how they're
Pandora's
involved
box
in that,
has
though.
been opened.
You know, if Amazon is in the booking process in a more fair way, and they're taking similar
What do you
margins,
mean
to
more
the-
fair? I got to be honest with you. Expedia's model is not unfair.
bidding on
It's
someone's
not.
brand keywords is unfair and should be illegal. 100%.
That
With you on
I
that one.
agree.
I'm with you on
That
that.
I
one.
agree with, but they're
But that's
Well, that's how they're
customer
making their
acquisition.
money.
That isn't the
Why?
booking process. Yeah.
Why
But-
should it be illegal? It's fair market competition.
No,
Come
I think we're going to see that's challenged in the courts here in the next 12 months. There was
will.
recently some big cases that were won against off-site rental managers are no longer allowed to bid on keywords on the brand term because that
Yep.
is a known entity.
I'll
That
agree.
Same thing is going to happen to the OTAs unless their contracts prevent it. Which
But
I
you
think
don't
a lot
think
of the contracts prevent it.
Amazon is not going to be seen as unfair as
I don't
taking
think
what
so.
they learn about you in
No, 'cause-
room and applying that to targeting you for
No, because
booking
Amazon
other
aren't going to take
hotels?
such a big chunk, right? Expedia are in the profit business. Amazon's in the data business. And they're not
Amazon's.
gonna
I'm
take-
sorry. I
Okay.
think
Oh,
Walmart,
wait.
Sears, Kmart, Kohl's would very much disagree with you that Amazon doesn't take a very big chunk.
But it's not 30% of the top.
Or let's go through the.
You don't think it will? be?
Well, no, they
Not even
take
close.
It's
that
not
when they
30%
enter your
anymore
sector.
anyway.
20%, whatever. It's not going to be 20% that Amazon's.
No,
gonna
they take that off of your market cap when they enter your sector, just like
Right.
for healthcare.
this,
So
this is
they get
I mean,
paid up
I just
front.
have to say this: if in your heart as a hotel, you wouldn't invite Expedia or Booking.com to have in-room technology, then you shouldn't be inviting Amazon and Google.
I don't think we're there yet. I mean, we're talking about $100 per room investment.
Yep.
And
And
if we
everyone thought I was crazy when I thought hotels
Well-
were insane for driving guests to TripAdvisor. And wow, yeah. I'm sorry, this happens time and time again to this industry that most proponents are like, nah, they're going to do the right thing. It's not a problem. And then next thing you know,
I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on
next
that
thing
one.
you
But this
know,
is
it's like, oh crap.
This is different because with TripAdvisor, the hotel could have provided the same value. They could have put the reviews on there. They could have used.
I'm arguing the hotel can provide the same value by being prepared for bring your own device.
But that doesn't exist today. So in today's economy, get an Amazon Echo, and then if Amazon gets into the business, then take it out. But I don't think the customers should be penalized now.
Stuart, how long have you been working with hotels?
17 years.
And so let me ask you this: a hotel installs Amazon Echoes.
I live in
You
utopia.
think they're ever going to take something out?
Right?
I have so missed this.
Yes,
It's not fully depreciated because you're depreciating everything over 20 years.
Okay. You're right. You're right. I give people too much credit. I'm an optimist. What can I say?
I am an optimist with you as well. That there's a hope, but there is the skepticism with it. But
Here's what the hotels will do. I guarantee. First, for voice, they will ignore it. Okay, which they have pretty much done. When you look at Marriott and Hilton, voice is not on their plans and their roadmaps yet at all. Both of those groups who are very much working on IoT things in the rooms. Voice is not there, right? So they're ignoring it. In a year or two or whenever, when voice is really the thing, just look at what happened with mobile. They're going to be told you really need to look at it, and they will ignore it again. The industry, not Hilton and Marriott, they'll be looking at it and doing stuff, I'm sure. But the industry as a whole will ignore it again. Then they will look at what's going on and see that they have Echoes in all their rooms and Google Homes, and they will panic. Okay? And then finally they will just resign themselves to, well, I guess there's nothing we can do about it. Because that is what they've done with OTAs. That's what they've done with mobile. It's what they've done with search. It's what they've done with everything. They are very consistent.
Well, okay, I'm not going to disagree with the possibility that you are dead spot on, but I will say that I think that the disease of our industry with this is laziness of decisions. Because rather than create a solution to what you're saying, Ed, where it's like, hey, look, the technology is already in people's pockets. Let's figure a way of using what's there and making it to the benefit of what they, to Stuart's point, is comfortable and familiar. Instead, they're like, hey, you know what? We don't want to take the time, money, or expense because it's a risk and we don't know about returns and so forth. So let's just let Amazon come in and slap in some equipment. We just have to pay for the minimalist of technologies and let them figure out how they're going to talk to our guests because we don't want to deal with it. And then we fall into Robert's pattern, which is by the time we figure out that we open the door and the foxes in the hen house, all the chickens are gone. And we're stuck with them.
Yeah, but it's tricky for the hotels. And I do empathize with the hotels.
This is hard. I'll agree with that.
It is really hard because, okay, you can write a bunch of Alexa skills, right? Which could be really good, control everything in all your hotel. You can go do all that stuff. But then the question is, to trigger that skill, they're going to have to say something special and different than what they normally say, right? So I'm not sure how you get kind of that level of here's a generalized command that then winds up being location specific and location aware. It goes, got it, translate it, done. I mean, that's really cool. I think that's where it's going to end up. But I think Amazon hangs in there and participates in that somehow, or Apple or Google or whatever. So I don't know. I say ultimately, yeah, you walk in with your own device, or it doesn't matter. Maybe there is a services layer where you just talk in. And yes, when you register, it's always listening.
Where, Stuart, you should love to hear this. If I was Stuart and I sold mobile apps, I would be developing into those mobile apps the architecture for voice control, because you do not have to give them Amazon. You just need to understand why the consumer would want Amazon in their room. And provide them the lowest friction possible to get that functionality. Oh, and by the way, adding functionality to an app that actually increases the value of the app itself is just generally a good idea. So I will say this: if I had a hotel and I worked with Stuart, I'd say, hey, Stuart, what are we going to do about all these people wanting Amazons?
Yeah, well, I can neither confirm nor
Stuart's going to say, go ahead, put them in.
Yeah,
but I think Stuart should say, well, let's boil down to why they would want it. And should you be putting Amazons in, or should we be building a more interactive application to control it, give the guests what they want, so there's no hard feelings, there's no this hotel's out of time, all of this, but you're not inviting the wolf into the hen house.
Well, okay. Did he just reveal your Skunk Works project? I mean, is this
I can neither confirm nor
program?
deny that, but there's a lot of additional functionality being added to Guest Express as we speak.
Okay.
But
But do you guys agree with me that that's actually the place where
For
you
sure.
solve for this?
For sure, I think
I
down the
think
road
for
it's
kind of
device
short to
agnostic.
midterm strategy, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think there needs to be an interface from your voice to natural language processing to artificial intelligence to figure out what you're saying, right? That needs to, but that can be agnostic. That could be Google or Amazon or Siri or some proprietary thing
Cortana
or
or-
Angie,
Good.
whatever, right?
You-
No,
you
cannot be
can see-
Cortana. Cannot be Katana. But other than
Hey, Stuart.
yeah,
Stuart, I'm sorry. I think you misspoke. You said could. I think you meant to say should.
yeah, sure, that's true.
Yeah.
So
It should be agnostic.
It should be. And I think we'll get to that point, but we're in this transitionary period. This is in its infancy. And I think in the interim, there is no harm today put in an Echo Dot in every room in your hotel.
And I wholeheartedly disagree.
Which
Well,
is why I love this
No,
show.
actually, you know what?
Well,
Some-
the interesting one was Viv, right? I thought Viv, which
Viv,
was
yeah, I
open
thought Viv-
source,
Well, that's
and,
Bixby
and was
now. That's
developed by the guys who created Siri. That was very cool until, and the poor guys, I mean, they got a big check to sell Siri to Amazon, and then they got, I don't know if it was a bigger check, but they got another big check to sell Viv to Samsung,
Right.
right? So
I'm not feeling
don't
sorry
know.
for him. The guys
Here's
are
the
doing
thing.
great.
no,
Here's
but
what I'm
that the
gonna do.
promise
I'm
of
gonna
that
do this right
platform.
now.
was-
I'm
was
going to
Viv.
build skills for Amazon to actively recognize when it's in a hotel to just ask for a TripAdvisor review. Let's start with that. And hotels will welcome that in, except it's completely the wrong thing to do. Then I'm just going to extend that skill to, would you like us to send you information on where to stay next? And I'll put it after you finish giving your review of the hotel, and then I'm going to give TripAdvisor all of your guests, because that's how hard it would be. Understand? That's it.
Yes.
Right.
That's it. TripAdvisor
Absolutely.
does it already. When you fill out a review for TripAdvisor, within 30 days, you will have a marketing email sent to you advertising the other hotels in the
That's it.
market, not the
That's
hotel
right.
you stay
Okay.
at. So let's put a TripAdvisor skill into Amazon, and let's see how quickly hotels want to put Amazon in these rooms.
Now, Ed, you would appreciate
Well,
one thing. I
they'll
was
still do
talking to.
it, they just won't realize it. They'll just do it, and they'll be oblivious to the whole TripAdvisor.
Well, yeah, that's
Right.
yeah. Ed, you'll appreciate this. I was talking to somebody about voice activation in the room the other day, and they actually had a very succinct answer to the perennial, listening to you all the time thing. They said, because we're this wearables world now, and it just could be as simple, because we were talking about the iPhone 10 and the face recognition and all that, that anytime that you wanted to use the voice activation, you're usually nearby your phone or your watch or whatever else that you're eventually going to integrate with. And it's just simply a touch or acknowledgement functionality that says, you can listen to me now, by touching it or affirming it or something, by actually activating it that way, so that during all the other times, you don't have the concern that you were bringing up of they're listening to everything you're doing, that you can actually control when it is you'd like to engage, and the rest of
So
the
then
time.
I'll argue,
You
why
can do
not
that
just
with
put
a-
a remote? Why not just put a remote function in your
Do
application?
you know what they do
Just-
to remotes in rooms?
just
Do you
allow-
ever see that
No,
under
no,
a black light?
in your app, your mobile app, to control the
An
lights, the TV.
Because it's
order
too
food.
complex. There's too many buttons, too many variables. Voice activation integration is much easier. Hey,
Oh,
turn
yeah.
the lights.
It's going to
turn
come
the
back to
TV.
what they're doing in their home, right? How do they interact with their home?
You
They're
guys
gonna
are
wanna interact in
way
that too.
oversimplifying this, because here's the thing: turn on the lights. So all the lights.
Yeah.
Just
I-
the
The
light.
bathroom lights, the main room light, the
Because
light,
here's
the
the thing,
lamp
when
in
you
the
set up
corner.
your home,
72
when
degrees.
you set up your home, you set up your home and you label what each device
sure.
is. Is that your living room
Right.
light? Is that this light? Is that light? I
Okay,
think
but
you could-
I'll argue with you down to a point, because this is operationally where this is my little sandbox. A light is better than all lights. A
Right.
specific action is better than all actions. If you're simply entering into the room and want it be lit to come in, which is the fundamental reason why you want that functionality, then it only has to be a light. It doesn't
Well,
have to be bed light versus overhead
hang
light
on.
versus front light versus back
Hang
light.
on, if
It's
somebody,
a
if the
functionality.
door
The
opens,
rest are light switches.
hang on, if the door opens, you can turn on the light. I think Ellsworth Statler figured that out in the 20s
True.
or 30s when
Yeah,
he
you
when he
guys-
did closet
You guys
lights.
are solving problems that are not problems.
Right, but I'm
Yeah.
taking your example of it. I'm talking about, to me, voice activation is whether you can watch your programming on a TV, whether you can engage with something that requires more functionality than flipping a light switch. I'm keeping it simplistic to the example that we had, which is a light. It's not as complex as which light and how many and whatever. It's just simply what function you're solving. And the function is, if you want to dialogue with your TV to watch certain programming that's tuned to your programming interests, create that interface and use it functionally.
But Google and Google Home already has that, right? And so I don't have my TV hooked up to it, but yes, it knows all of the subscriptions that you're set up for, and you can do it. You just tell the thing you want to watch Netflix, you want to watch Amazon Video, you want anything that's available. You get it, which is great. The challenge is you need Google and that intelligence to partly do the natural language recognition and translation, figure out what the hell you've asked for, and to try to turn it into some sort of fungible command. but then it needs to validate all of your subscription content and all that, and that's missing when you do your own so that's where it is going to end up.
And all I'm going to say is Google has a P&L line item on the amount of money they make off of travel.
Oh yeah,
it's its own line item. It's its own division, and it's bigger. Their like tiny line item is bigger than most companies in travel. So inviting that company to own more of the traveler experience, I think, is foolish.
But let's be realistic.
That just happens to bring up another topic, which was a news item. Google Hotels revamps mobile features as its ambitions expand.
What? Google's going to expand in this very lucrative field that they dominate? What?
All right, before we jump into that, I want to point out how people are using their Echoes in their house right now. If you look at it, it's playing music, it's setting alarm clocks, it's answering questions. It's not this complex stuff that we're talking about hypothetically. If I go in a hotel room and my kids ask me a question that I can't answer, what we do at home now is we ask the Echo, right? What if we want to set an alarm, instead of having that silly device next with lights and stuff that I've got to figure out how to use to set the alarm clock, I can either use my phone, or if there's an Echo in the room now, I can just say set an alarm for 9 a.m.
But here's my question.
That's the functionality I want in a hotel room.
Who's
it's not
coming to your hotel without a device that already does that?
It doesn't matter. It's about what I do in my house, right?
Right. So
I have my phone in my house. In my house, I have my phone next to my bed. I don't use it to set my alarm. I use my Echo in my room to set my alarm.
Okay, but that's because you use an Echo. I use an Android, brought to you by Google.
So they're connected. Right?
Hey, by the way, Robert, have you called
Santa?
Have you called Santa yet on Google yet? Have you? Okay, Google, call Santa.
He's got headphones on. No. He's smarter than that. Come on.
You bet.
I tried.
No, but here's the thing with your Echo and Alexa. That's only kind of sitting in your home. It doesn't travel with you. The Google Assistant is with me in my home. Sure. It is with me, wherever I go.
You can put it on your phone. I have Google
your
Assistant
Alexa
on my phone.
Oh no, you can. But I mean, I've got a Pixel. I've got a Pixel, right? So it is.
Just because you're not a very advanced voice user, okay.
My kids just use it for 20 questions. That's it.
Okay. But if I ask it to set alarms and everything, this does it. And when I'm here asking it to do things, the Home versus my Android are figuring out who's going to deal with it.
But here's the thing.
Navigation directions, it knows the phone can do it, and the Home can't.
I want to put out there as just a word of warning to hotels. As you're dabbling in changing consumer behavior, just think through your plan for as it pulls the rug out from underneath key revenue items for you. Just like last time I was in DC, I gave room service a chance. They didn't answer the phone. I Uber Eats right to my hotel room.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so painful.
Can we talk about net neutrality?
Yeah, I want to talk about net neutrality, and I don't want to lose the opportunity with you And with Darlene at least being able to listen, the article about the preferences of female travelers for security, what they're looking for, and the study that came up with some of the results of, because I'd love insights as to.
I gotta be honest with you. I can't believe how no one looks at the insights of that and just goes, "Women are more thoughtful than men." I mean, that is actually what that article is saying. Like when you look at what men answered, they're more willing to do things. That if you actually think about why would you answer you wouldn't be willing to do them, is because you were thoughtful about what the impact of doing that was. And then when you look at, women also tend to take a bigger role in deciding where to go. Again, that is thoughtfulness. That is like, that study shows you when it comes to make decisions that that are impactful, women are more thoughtful than men, is exactly what the data in that study shows.
Right. Yeah.
Well, again, the article itself, I think it just was a catalyst of the conversation, of the idea, because I remember back in the day with Wyndham, that Wyndham was uniquely perceived as a brand that women felt more safe with when they traveled in the brand framework. And they never, to my mind, actually capitalized that opportunity with them in the sense of defining it to a way that they then could make it larger and bigger and say, yes, we address these things. We can, our design is better. We have less reasons for you to be worried when you travel with us, whatever. And I thought, well, you know what, with Holly and Darlene able to, it's like, hey, what makes it different? What makes it so that what considerations do you have?
Well, and the reason Wyndham was doing well was look at some of their executive team several years ago. You had people like Flo Lugli and Linda Kent and Tammy Peter and all these people who just happened to be women and very smart and members of relatively senior levels on these teams. And yes, you wind up getting better results when you have things like that. So.
But I actually disagree with you, Lauren, that when you realize that you're tapping into consumers' desires or feelings, I don't think you should just like come out and like go all in. I think you should understand. I think you should understand the nuance that's gotten you in the position you're in.
It's the operational answers that I was looking for. It wasn't so much the advertising.
Oh, okay.
The operational answers. Yeah. Just what was it? What were they? So that then it's like, let's make sure that we're consistent with those, that we can maybe augment them more, and not just exploit and start putting a banner as like, hey, we're safe for women to travel. No, it's more like, what can you do to make sure that all those things are redefined and absolutely solid in your strategy? That's more operational.
Actually, I had a funny story from Lubbock a couple weeks ago where I had to stop at a Wingate Inn to actually pick up a key for my daughter, right? From a friend of hers who was staying there because her mom was there, right? So was staying there visiting. So I go in, I come in, I have the guest's name. I don't want to go to the room. I just need to reach them, right? And so I basically asked the clerk, can you please contact so-and-so to tell them I'm here? They're expecting me, because I didn't have their cell phone number or anything. It was just, I'm at a desk, and they would not let me do that for security reasons. And I'm
Although if you had called and said, can you please connect me to so-and-so's room, they would have connected.
Oh, no. So I said, so what do I need to do? I go, do you have like a house phone? I can call them instead if you won't do. So of course I call and it rings and they pick it up. They're standing right. I go, okay, can you please connect me? No, the guy said, and obviously poor training, I need to know their room number to connect you. It's like, no, you do not want me to know their room number and the name. That's really bad. That's a bad thing. So all I want to do is have you contact them.
I mean, to be fair though, you are awfully
unbelievable.
Well,
I am.
I would connect you.
So I was profiled, and the guy probably made a.
I mean, granted, the windowless white van you pulled up into probably didn't help.
Hey, Ed, just because I was handing candy out, it was near Halloween.
Yeah, but it was Easter candy.
You'd love those peeps.
Oh, that's not good. Holly, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I can't volunteer at something here because I don't really fit the thoughtful female role, so I can't really weigh in on that.
Oh wow, we kind of use you for that in this show. So that's
yeah, no. Sorry.
So sorry. I don't know if any of you were thinking that when you were reading the article, but I mean, if you look at all the data and say, wow, why is all this data showing this? I mean, you can extrapolate that ultimately when it comes to these types of decisions, women are more thoughtful.
Well, and if since my specialty is ancient hotel industry history because I was there, one of the great hotels back, 20s, 30s, 40s, I think, even through the 60s was the Barbizon on the Upper East Side, New York. I think it was like 63rd and maybe Park or something like that. But it was a hotel just for women, and all the models and actresses and all that sort of things. It was safe. Men were not allowed. I mean, it was like a women's dorm. No men. After whatever 10 p.m. are allowed into the room, and it was a great environment. They had all sorts of specialized things for women where there would be get-togethers and social things and stuff like that in that hotel. Very successful. Now they wound up kind of killing that thing because again you have to fill I think they had 380 rooms or something like that. You've got to fill those every night, and they figured out, we aren't filling this. If we change our business model, we can we have a better chance of running a higher occupancy. But it was a great,
could have just rented space on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I'm all for if people want special floor. I'm a big fan of having really good security and really good processes at all the hotels, so you can just treat women like a regular guest and everybody's secure. So you don't have to do a bunch of really special things. But
I do have one thing that I think is weird. I can't completely tell you why I feel this way. I think I'm not a huge fan of Marriott hotels because I've always felt like their amenities are for men. Their soaps, their shampoos are for men.
You can't spell amenity without men.
Exactly. And I don't like them. So,
oh man, I'm about to get Matt Lauered, aren't I?
Tell you what. Tell you what, little lady.
Versus Hilton, who I love Hilton shampoos. It is, and they're not fragrant. They're really good shampoos for your hair. The Philip Roth something.
Well, so Marriott just has crappy shampoo is the problem.
No. They're not. They're male.
It's pert,
they're
right?
male.
It's pert.
Oh.
I don't know, but the smell, it's very male. I don't like it.
Axe.
It's Axe.
Forget it. But it's significant, I think. I'm guessing I'm not the only female that feels that way.
Probably not. I mean,
I'm certain that I'm not. My friends know Hilton has better female amenities.
So what did you think of Starwood's amenities then?
I don't know. I don't think I haven't stayed at a Starwood for 5 years.
This reminds me of my trip to China.
Which is why they're now with Marriott.
Yeah, right? When I was in China, and I was just amazed by the amenity things that they put in the room. It was everything. So the combs and toothbrushes and sewing kits and I mean just everything together. And it's like, my God, U.S. hotels don't even touch this stuff anymore. You're lucky to get conditioner and body lotion and shampoo. It's like they had a whole Pandora's box of stuff that they gave. So.
Different cost structures. Different labor cost structures.
Yeah. Okay, net neutrality. You want to do net neutrality. So,
because have you guys talked about it? I just want to know, is it going to happen?
We're not allowed to because then people won't be allowed to access our show from their internet.
I won't get the bandwidth necessary for the show.
You see Darlene's thing here. That's what happens when net neutrality goes away. They can see you, but you can't hear things. And it's very bad. So.
Hey guys, I love this topic, but I gotta drop off. So the one thing
I'll tell them what you would think of it. Don't worry.
I think we all agree on where we stand, right? But there needs to be a call to action. If you have not already reached out to your members of Congress, go ahead and do it. Send them emails. Just let them know your feelings because it would be catastrophic.
If you really want it to work out, just tweet Trump that you love watching his tweets and want to be able to continue to do that without having to pay your provider more. So you should get involved in net neutrality.
Yeah, definitely get involved because if you sit by and watch this happen, there's going to be a shit show afterwards, and you have no one else to blame but yourself. So go reach out to as many people as you can and let them know how you feel about it.
And if you're not a Fuel Travel customer, you really need to be concerned about it because your website's slow already.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. But just imagine Expedia has this massive up on you right now. Imagine if your site was now 10 times slower than Expedia, and how much
10
more
times
that-
slower than it already is. 10
Good
times
things
slower than
said.
Yeah,
Expedia.
it would be
Well,
100.
it's more like
you know,
Netflix buffering. Yeah, that will
Yeah.
get people's attention.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
Netflix.
No, because
buffering,
Netflix will pay it.
Yeah.
They'll make the deals.
But under
Yeah, the
thinking
big
of
guys will win.
buffering,
The small
Yeah,
guys will
maybe.
lose. It's
Yep.
simple as that. So anyway, guys, I got to run.
All right,
Hi,
Hey,
Stuart.
Bye,
Thank you.
Stuart. Thank you. Stuart, by the way, is the nicest one of all of you.
Ah,
Just
That's
so
a
you
good
know.
question. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone would.
No,
Yeah.
he is. He's the
We
nicest
all
one.
we all agree
And the
with
most
that.
optimistic too. He's the most optimistic. He believes the good in all people.
He has been very supportive and helpful with my little coding stuff.
Oh, is he? Has he been helping you with that?
Very
Yay!
nice. That's very nice.
Not he's offered his help, but really he's just been incredibly encouraging.
So
I
me
sent
taunt-
him my code.
my email taunts of like, have you learned anything yet? Are you still stuck on the same thing? Those things just aren't going anywhere with it, is
Just not the same as Stuart.
it? Damn it! I got to change my method. Well, yeah, the net neutrality thing I can't agree with more. Is like I've already just exhausted sending emails out to the people that are in the same region. And I even try to take advantage of the fact that they still have me listed in Dallas and send emails from the account that I had from out over there just to argue the point that it's just absolute ludicrous thought process that we would be even considering these changes. So
So is your feeling that it's going to happen? It's not going to happen?
What's going to happen?
I'm afraid that it is going to happen. Yeah, it's just there's too much ignorance at too high of a level, and there's too much money going in people's pockets that they're going to get from the people that are going to benefit from this change.
Comcast already took the page that had their support for net neutrality down. Stuff, yeah, this thing's on rails.
Yeah, and then the people that are now in
Just-
authority
Tim
are the people that are for it.
isn't here. Yeah, Tim isn't here to say don't be political, but elections have consequences.
Yes. When you hire idiots and ignorance, it gets to be this level.
Robert was being subtle. Lauren, not so much.
No, because it's absolutely amazing that there are these people being put into positions that they don't even know what the department they're in charge of. And then
No.
and
They'd want the department dismantled is
Yeah.
the problem. So yeah,
and it's going to happen. Next thing you know,
Listen,
we're going to be getting the internet based on how much we
I
want to
hate to
spend.
be
for
that
bandwidth.
guy again, but I got to be honest with you. Like, if you're just now waking up to the fact that the large corporations in the world control everything we do, like, this is the perfect example. The net neutrality thing is a perfect example of the people with the most money, which happen to be the corporations, control
Right.
everything.
and the tipping point was the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which said money is free speech and allowing corporate investment. Because look at
Unlimited.
the tax plan, give it a dramatic, and when you're reducing someone's tax rates by 40 some %, that's a dramatic change.
And we're already in
And-
debt to begin with.
And and the issue is
It's
will
not debt
that
if you
money-
never intend to pay it back.
That's true.
That's right.
true.
Yeah.
And
but the
bottomless
big-
check.
the conversation that I don't think many people are having is, all that incremental corporate profit, will some of it trickle down to workers and things like that? I don't know. Over time, that is not proven to be the case, but I bet a bunch of it is going to go to political advertising and lobbying.
Well, again,
Just
it goes
saying.
back. I mean,
You think
this,
so?
you're throwing it onto the mix. It was like the tax cuts are short term for medium income and lower income people, but permanent for corporate. Seems a little odd. So yes, and to that end, from the corporate side of things, is the benefit of having this regulated means that now we're going to go like the cable system. Oh, if you want those channels, it's going to be this much more money.
Hey.
If you want this speed, you want this much more money. And we're going to be paying for the access availability. If you don't have the
And-
cash, you're not on the bandwidth.
And my particular spot where I live, I have the choice of one cable provider. That's it.
Mhm.
And Dish and all those guys.
Which,
do
by the
not
way, that
provide-
should be illegal, but luckily 5G is going to change that.
That's true. 5G may.
No one's
may
no
help.
one's laying
But-
last mile anymore. Like,
Mhm.
Right.
no one is. But
Right.
you will see when 5G comes out, all of a sudden you will have however many providers
Right.
there are that exist, you will have that many options.
And and I guess one of the arguments for net neutrality, to get rid of it, oh, well, these guys can go do this and that, and they can fix things and optimize, and whoever provides the lowest cost will get the best, will get more users. But
until they go
when
out of business
everybody-
and get bought by the company that wants to make a margin, and they drive up the
Right.
costs.
Yeah, and look at what's happened between Verizon and T-Mobile, and AT&T and Sprint and all those folks. Yeah, it's the same, and you'll wind up with maybe 2 or 3 probably 3, because when you get down to 2, then somebody does kind of go, that's not, that's maybe not enough. But who knows? I think in many cases, it too will wind up being it, right? So.
And I don't think people really realize, they think that there must be an end around to this, or that there's an alternative to this, or that there's something else that will be found out that you could do. And it's like, no, you don't understand. This is the source point. This is, it controls the very ability for you to communicate or connect to anything and everything. And once that's lost as being open gated as it is now, then no matter what you think you can do, whether, I had one person say, well, I'll just VPN out to another country. No, you don't understand. There's nothing about VPNing to another country that changes what is going to happen to this. It's the actual facilitation of being able to even get online is now going to change fundamentally.
Well, and as Stuart said, now internet access is a utility. So this is like going to that crappy hotel with really bad water pressure, or you think it's really bad water pressure in the shower, but it's because they have a limiter in there.
Yeah.
That's why it's drizzling out. And that's...
Well, I mean, but that actually, so this whole internet as a utility thing is where net neutrality has unnecessarily caught the budgets of the big companies. Because if you stop short of calling internet a utility, then most large organizations wouldn't be fighting as hard as they are. But when you label it a utility, then it starts to get questioned as
regulation.
Right, and also just a basic human right then. Like, it's illegal for a landlord to cut off water to a unit.
And Ed knows based on the responses of his tenants in his rental properties. So.
No, you're not cutting it off by spraying water through the window. There's still water in that unit. It's just not the way you wanted it.
Hey, there's a hydrant out front. You're fine.
You're fine. But you understand that's actually the crux of what's caused this whole thing to be fought tooth and nail, are the ones who wanted to go as far as labeling the internet as a utility, because that is a slippery slope.
Yep.
It's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought about it that way. No.
Because Amazon doesn't want to get involved in this shit. AT&T doesn't want to get involved in this stuff. They're getting involved in this stuff because you just told them that, oh, by the way, the end game of this is you're going to be considered a utility, and therefore you will be treated the way utilities are treated. And it's like, oh, that's a problem. That's a lot of government involvement. And government involvement, no, you don't want that. Not as a free business, you don't want that. You always want to steer clear of whatever the threshold is that triggers deep government involvement. You must stay just short of that.
Well, or any government involvement for any business. I mean, it's just let the free market go is the philosophy, right? And it will manage itself, and you don't need the government. The market will take care.
But understand, you label it as a utility, you're not getting what you think you're getting.
Right. Yep.
I'm going to sound really terribly negative about this, but there's no such thing as a free market. I mean, unfortunately, with the biasness of how things get run, there is no balancing of scales when it comes to capitalism, because those who have more influence. And until there's an equality of everybody participating, it's not really a free market system. There's a leveraged system in capitalistic markets. The reason why our stock markets don't go down right now is because right now it's a freaking Christmas party for every corporation in America, because regulations are being yanked out, no restrictions are being put on, and anybody that would even raise their hand is being silenced. So yeah, it's a free-for-all fun time for them, because they can get to do whatever they want to. So yes, there we go. Off the political things.
Which, unfortunately,
I thought we navigated the politics of this very well.
Yeah. No, there's a great article this morning, and I think it was the Washington Post, which was a fellow who was a professor at a university who basically did the parallels between the early 20s and sort of certain populist sort of political things that went on that kind of disguised as populism that wound up being very, very pro, centralized concentration of wealth and power. And he for some reason draws some conclusions to the Great Depression as an
You
outcome.
don't say.
I don't know. Yeah,
You
I
don't
know.
say.
It's
Like,
pretty odd. Yeah.
Unregulated businesses being in control of everything and then finding out that it was an artificially propped up environment. No, I can't see anything being similar.
that never happens. That never has any
No.
effect on the economy.
There's regulations in place
Right.
that would stop any of that from ever happening. How dare
Right.
you even think that, Robert?
That
I
stuff's
threw
too
up-
big to
that's right.
fail, Robert.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
threw up what I thought was, and I very rarely ever say this, I thought it was a nice article. Every once in a while, for hoteliers, because they're more of an APAC focused listing of content, I thought was a nicely written article that spent time on the topic. I think that's probably, if anything, it was a measuring of this article that I threw up in the chat thing, was that they actually spent time talking about the content that was headlined. I'd not necessarily agree with all aspects and perspectives of it, but for one of the few times, it wasn't this hurried up tidbits of tantalization, and then for the rest of the story, you got to go listen to an ad. It was like, look,
Well,
Here's
because
the
it was
article.
actually written by someone who was actually trying to educate you. It was
right.
Yes.
By
Yeah.
the senior marketing manager of the School of Hotel and Tourism Management.
No, they were really trying to say, hey, look, take this perspective and then give supportive arguments towards it, rather than here's the teaser, here's the hook, and then if you want more, you got to give its content.
But I just want to ask this. Is there anyone out there? Is there someone who's contrarian to this thought process? Because I want to understand, like, are they also a flat earther?
Well,
Are
now
you going to build a
that-
rocket, Ed? Are you gonna
I
build a
think we
rocket?
need. I think we need to save the flat Earth thing so we can convince everyone of it next week's episode, Ed.
I just
think
want to
that's-
see where
yeah,
we're
let's
all
do that.
flat Earthers.
Did
I
you
mean,
read any
so-
of this and went, oh man, I never thought this way before, and now I now am a true believer that we should do this. Like, duh. Like, yes, it was a well-written article with really good intention. My question is who's the audience?
I actually and to this end, I have to say I still get surprised by the lack of awareness by people I talk to, and I'm not saying that there's a lot of them. Maybe there is, and I just don't know. But I talk to people that don't understand some fundamental aspects of even understanding Facebook's usability in a business environment or social in general. They're still sitting under the perspective that traditional
So let
ways
me
of
ask you,
approaching market,
What's their role?
unfortunately,
Are they
too
in
high up.
marketing?
Responsible
be
for
fired.
marketing.
Sales?
Yes,
They should be fired
I'm serious. They're in
They should be
responsibilities
fired
of decisions,
and
and they're not
purged
looking at this way.
from this
Yes.
industry. Because if you're not keeping up with where the consumer has already moved to, we're not even talking about where consumers are shifting to. This
Right.
has been a while now. If you're not keeping up with that and that's involved in your direct line of responsibility for a company, you should be fired.
And to quote exactly the term that was used in the discussion, if you could keep up with that social stuff that I'm not too familiar with, because I guess it might be valuable sometime, that from a person actually decides on writing a check, and you're sitting there
Now,
going,
wait.
really?
If they write a check, like, so if you were going to tell me GMs, fine, because you know what, their job isn't
run a hotel.
necessarily, it's not the marketing aspect of it,
Right.
and I give a full pass on that. However, if their job is to market or sell a hotel and you're having those conversations,
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
just ask you this: were they the one who hired you, or did someone else hire you? Because if someone
Someone
above
else.
them hired you, then
Yes.
you need to point out that this person is doing a great disservice to the business.
Yes, I agree with you completely. It's a matter of being the right time and the right thing to show the validation. But yes, it is.
Now,
These
only
conversations
on
do come up.
something that's been as solid as Facebook has been for as long as Facebook has been.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't knock people for not understanding blockchain. I don't knock people for not understanding things that are literally still in vapor phase.
Mm-hmm.
But to not have a basic fundamental understanding of that social media thing and being in marketing
Mhm.
is
Now-
a complete and utter, you've been asleep, you've not read an article, you've not
But wait,
attempted to
wait.
educate yourself.
But wait. The problem goes back to how many people in the hotel business are in marketing purely or are wearing a sales and marketing.
That's a good point.
And
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem always with the hospitality business.
So you're telling me that a
don't have any-
salesperson shouldn't at least interest themselves in how consumers are interacting with each other, because isn't it a salesperson's job to understand what's the best way to interact with your potential client so that you have a good rate of closing?
Yeah.
And
Your
maybe,
GM is
well, maybe
telling
not
you to get out
Facebook,
there
but
and make sales
LinkedIn and
calls.
Facebook
Yeah,
groups.
yeah. I had to deal with somebody that was they couldn't join a conversation because they had a minimum call list that day. They had minimum schedule points they had to hit, and there was no break in any of that because their GM was very
Right.
traditional minded as to X number of calls, X number of touch points.
The
blah, blah, blah.
funnel.
And
What's the
they're not
funnel?
allowed on Facebook in the hotel. Their
Oh, right,
Facebook
it's blocked.
is not allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will
I
add
mean, that's the world we live in.
to going back to this article, though, the reason why I think, and I know from talking with Jackie with the HSMAI APAC, is, and this goes to liberal education versus a very centered education as a business acumen or something. There's such a focus on somebody's understanding of what they learn to get a job that they don't have much deviance from their learning cycle. And now they're in a role that requires them to understand new skill sets. And so there are people in revenue management. There's people that are in fundamental hospitality industry things that may not be a specific marketing that are not completely understanding the metrics or basics associated with something like Facebook. And I can see it being in an APAC article like this, that talking about zero to awareness conversation points is like opening a door to explaining what people are assuming you would already know or don't know, but you're too embarrassed to ask maybe. So there is a value proposition to, I think, the market, the audience that they were talking to, that you get these brilliant people in an industry doing something specific, but now they need to understand this little deviance like Facebook.
So
I think
here's Ed's tip on how to be successful.
we should make this a segment. We should make
Always
Ed's tip.
be curious. If you want to get ahead in life, if you want to be promoted, if you want to be valuable to the people around you as either an employee or employer or manager or trainee, always be curious.
I'm not disagreeing with you from the perspective of Western culture, but I will say from my dealings with Eastern culture offices I worked with, that their focus on success was a lasered linear progression. I have step 1. I want to go to step 20. I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5 in just one straight. I'm going to be the best at, because I would ask the same thing of a designer and engineer. It's like, dude, have you not considered that this is usable this way? No. This is what they want me to do. This is what I came here to do. This is what I'm expected to do. And if I want to go to the next level of what I want to do, in this is this way. And it's a very linear thought. So they tend to actually be,
but
they want to excel at what
Lauren, that
excellent
culture is changing.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Absolutely
So
not.
I'm still going to
there's
say,
But
always be curious. Now, the only place I'd say probably don't be curious is maybe North Korea. Like, probably mind your own business.
Don't go hiking. Don't go
Do what
hiking.
you're
Don't
supposed
go
to do.
traveling.
Maybe don't get too curious in Russia. But if you're
Don't
in
be
a
curious about posters. Yeah.
if you're in a generally free economy, always be curious.
And it is changing to that point.
ABC is always be.
But there's such a
I
high
agree.
competition. There's such a high competition. There's 100 people for one place kind of thing. And so you have to be exceptionally excellent at a specific thing for that one talented position. You can't be a jack of all trades Renaissance person to be the engineer of something. You have to be the best engineer compared to the 99 or 999 other people that were trying to go for the same gig. So I think in that sense, they're very
by the
limited.
way, truly special engineers, truly special in any highly focused environment, the truly special people, if you actually look, it's because they're curious.
Yes, they have a spectrum. They can see it from many positions, which is the argument of liberal education versus focused degrees. I think that liberal education allows you that diversification to look at a project in a different perspective from different angles compared to only one way of looking at it. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, I agree. Disagree. It's all good stuff.
and speaking of curiosity, I have to go.
Right.
Oh, she's lost interest.
She's
I
lost
know.
interest in us.
Just like Ed said something
even
positive.
close.
I'm out of here.
What's the thing we're going to create? Ed's tips or Ed's
Ed's tips on how to get ahead. Always be curious.
Actually, I have
Sometimes
one
wrong, never in doubt.
before you go, Holly. I have one thing to share. It's a YouTube video. It's about 18 minutes long. It's by my little hero, Scott Galloway from L2 Inc. But he interviews the CEO of Charity Water, or the founder of Charity Water, and unbelievably innovative nonprofit. And I think businesses can look at how they approach the business challenges of that and really outrageously innovative, completely changed the space, the approach.
It sounded like
Everything
this on
very,
Facebook
very
too.
interesting.
You were very enamored with this. I saw it and I was
Oh
impressed
yeah.
too.
Oh
It
no,
really
it's an
is.
unbelievable thing. The guy was like working in a nightclub. He said he worked in 40 nightclubs in Manhattan. Discovered, when he's 30 years old, just like, what am I doing with my life? Decided he wanted to give back and really do something. Could not get hired by any NGO because he didn't have any experience. They're like, you're some guy, forget it. He took a job he had to pay the group $500 a month or something like that to go live in Liberia. And he discovered, hey, these people are drinking dirty water. This is nuts. And talk about basic civil, right, human rights to have access to clean water, since like 60% of disease comes from that. And he went in and discovered, hey, we should do something. This is a fixable problem. And how he went about figuring out how to raise money, how to make the charity more efficient, how to have it better connected. Unbelievable. I mean, should be just a recipe book for anybody look at any kind of business to go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Really, really good stuff.
By the
Cool,
way, some
thank
of the
you.
best super long-term investments you can make is in water.
Oh yeah.
Because
Another Ed's tips.
all the very smart people in the world that have seen lots of the things that have happened to us coming, that's where all of them have moved. Water
yeah.
is actually water's better than oil.
Yeah.
Darlene said water's the new oil. It's better.
All right, I do have to go. Bye.
Bye.
Good.
Yeah.
You had so
Holly.
much fun.
Good
being
seeing
here.
you.
Good to
Goodbye.
see you too. Bye.
Yep. After a hard afternoon of working in the yard, a large, tall, cool glass of water is so much better than a large glass of oil.
Is that what you're calling your mid-afternoon cocktail hour? Water
That's
day.
The ice is made out of water.
Made out of water. So
Yeah.
what? Robert, you had a bunch of topics, man. I didn't even get a list of it. So what do you? I mean,
Well,
I got a
because
few left.
it's after the show began, so no one had a chance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know. I think we covered most of. We can wrap up here. I'm completely fine with a. Actually, there was one interesting one because we were talking about about women travelers and things like that. That Chanel did something very interesting. It was an all-female pop-up club in New York, and I mean, really did some very, again, interesting stuff. And you start looking at this because they were basically looking at launching, I think it was like a watch sort of thing, but they started working with, holding events in co-working spaces, things like that. And boy, let me tell you, hotels for event business and things like that, there is going to be one hell of a lot of competition from all these co-working spaces, residential apartment building, God knows, just independent event spaces that the hoteliers have to figure this stuff out.
Okay, I'm going to ask an interesting question that as you're bringing this up is like, how can you effectively as a hotelier create niche events yet be politically neutral in the sense of, where you want to do an all women's event and you want to do something unique, and you get these always people that say, why am I excluded? Why are you not doing this where I can participate? And you're trying to say, look, this is particular for this particular niche, I'm female or not, or whatever. How can we pull that off? I mean, it's like opening up a hotel saying only a certain type of ethnic people can be here, or only a certain type of genre can be here, or only a certain type of person can be here, because we're kind of doing it into a generational sense. This is a millennial hotel. Nobody looks at that as being biased, but it is. I mean, you're saying I'm going to be catering to a level of interest based on a certain age level, not a.
Well, in this particular case, though, it was Chanel. It was you've got this luxury brand that's launching a new product, and there's this co-working space, and they turned it into a clubhouse sort of thing. So to be able to do that, that co-working space isn't solely defined just for exclusively for women and things like that. I don't believe. I'll go check, but I don't think. I think you can do that, not to be exclusionary, but you can wind up having things that are tailored to that market, and being open and accepting and welcoming is what hospitality is all about. So I don't think the exclusionary aspect should be it. Now, again, you may turn off some very closed-minded racist sort of people by doing things like that, which, again, as a business, you can make that decision of whether you need those guys as customers or not. But I don't know. I think it's I don't think I'm looking up the wing right now to see if that is a female exclusive. Oh no, actually in this case it was a co-working and community for women, so it was an exclusive space for women too, which again, if you're Chanel, makes a great
I just wonder how long you're going to be able to continue doing that. I mean, now where even the Boy Scouts aren't allowed to exclude women, and the Girl Scouts are actually quite worried about that, what that's going to do to them.
Right.
This day's coming where you're not going to be able to use the things that are also used to generally include or exclude people as a filter for your event or your thing. You're gonna, and then what about people who do not identify female or male?
Right.
I mean, this is the tricky thing that our culture has gone to now, where I strongly caution anyone from getting too deep into that being the filter. How about just, are you really interested in Chanel? Great.
Right.
Here's your pop-up club because you're really interested in Chanel.
Yeah, well, no, and the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts issue, I think, is really interesting. New York Times has their daily podcast, right, every morning. It's an excellent podcast. But they had one with actually it was a father who had two daughters who were twins, fraternal twins. And one was actually because they had a friend who was a lawyer, or actually a friend who was the head of the little Boy Scouts, chapter sort of thing, and his daughter wound up joining the Boy Scouts, and even talking to his other daughter who stayed in the Girl Scouts and liked it, because they were very different kids. The bottom line was, and they talked to other Boy Scouts and things like that, they're like, they really wanted to sell cookies. That would be really cool. It's stuff they wanted to be able to do. They love the cook. And the girls were like, yeah, the thing about the Girl Scouts, the activities really suck because we're indoors and we're doing this stuff. These guys are out there bungee jumping or doing God knows whatever else. We want more of that sort of thing. So a lot of it is the programming of these traditional stereotypes, which are getting broken down. It's like, yeah, you need to take a look at what you're doing. So kids want to belong, which is why a lot of boys don't join Boy Scouts, right? Because they just go, I don't want to do that stuff. It's too,
it's kind of funny.
Boring.
Back in the college days, one of the conversations that I remember enjoying talking about was the Orwellian philosophy. And one of my friends at the time, who was a philosophy major, he says that the book wasn't about suppression of a single entity over a bunch of people, was the lack of individuality of those that were in the society. That we are heading to a point where any identifier, I wear red clothes, you wear blue clothes, I like cold weather, you like warm weather, is a ideology of potential discrimination. Why can't we make the room colder? I like it colder. I like it hotter. Well, that's bias, whatever. And so we're getting to this conformity of gray clothes and single conformity and everything else. Yet by the same token, we as a people love individuality. So how can we be both, where we can celebrate the individuality of what we're interested in, yet not step on the lack of conformity of saying, I'm identifying you and isolating you and treating you differently because of it. And hence you can say I'm being prejudiced to whatever it is that difference is. So it is a weird dichotomy of what we're dealing with right now.
Well, what's actually interesting, though, is like what causes all of that is oversimplification of issues.
Yes, right. Stereotyping, creations of categorizations rather than individualities. And to that end, and I'm not saying the marketing is going to save the world, the ability to identify individual interests, going back to what you said, Ed, is really going to be the defining factor of allowing people to feel satisfied in their uniqueness without necessarily feeling to have to imply it upon other people to be conformingly group oriented. Like, I need a bunch of people to like the same thing I like. We're going to magnate towards people that are familiar with us or similar to us in some things, and be drawn away from people that don't like the same things. So it is again, not to get whole philosophical on it, it's not so much that there's going to be an overlord over presence of forming. That's how they control us, is because of our lack of wanting to be individuals without feeling that we would be suppressed by doing so.
I'll go back to the thing I said earlier. There are many villains in many movies and stories with the quote of, people want to be controlled and told what to do. I mean, that comes from this exact type of movement of removing the things that make you an individual eventually lead to you being in an oppressed society.
Well, Ted did a great thing on cults, on how cults get you into it, and that conformity, and then that control that they create for it, because it creates that exact environment you see. Yeah. See, we got all philosophical. Here we're talking about hospitality and marketing.
Because all the smart people have left already.
That's right. We're going down the rabbit holes of individual preferences. Yeah. The only other thing I had that, well, I mean, there was another article on AI and so forth that was kind of generic, was the forecasting one, only from the perspective that I think that automation is supplanting a lot of common sense things. Hey, Darlene, we'll see you next time. Thanks again for the conversation. Please, I hope we get all the tech solved, Darlene, because we would love to have you on the conversation. Absolutely, would love to have it. But the forecasting, where I think that people are losing the nuances associated with forecasting aspects, and that they're looking at generalizations and relying too much on technology to give them the interpretation, and they're forgetting that the individual moving pieces from a more hands-on revenue approach. I don't know. That's what I got out of that particular article that brought me to thinking about it. I don't know if you had the chance.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't read it.
No,
I didn't read it, but I don't have to read things to have comments.
That's right, or an opinion. God dang it!
I got nothing but that.
That's never slowed us down before.
but the challenge for hotels a lot comes down to the true quality of the data, though, right? Because sometimes they don't have the granularity of data to make really nuanced decisions. They rely on kind of these, superficial high level things, which can, both sides are a problem of it. I mean, you need a balance where if you're too far in the weeds, you can mess yourself up as well.
Right. So. And then on the opposite side of that, in some cases, a hotel is a business unit for certain decisions to be based algorithmically. It's too small of a data set. You don't have enough volume. You're like the amount of volume of data you do have is within the margin of error. Right.
Yeah, because you only know about your guests and traffic to your site and your little world, and then that's why I've always said this: the deck is stacked in favor of the OTAs versus hotel brand. Hilton may be really good with their guys and their traffic and their customers and everything they do, but they don't know that those guys are also well, they're a top tier Hilton Honors member. They could be a top tier Marriott Rewards member. Who knows, right?
They are.
They probably are. Yeah.
Then you throw into the politics of it. I was again, and it seemed to say with the client that there was somebody that was boasting that whatever I tell my infrastructure people, they believe because I'm the authority on it. It doesn't mean that they're right. It just means that that's the authority. That's the basis of the decision models of it and so forth. And if it comes to misinterpreted data, like you're mentioning, Robert, then the whole premise of a strategy is based on the bad starting point. And then next thing you know, they don't know why it's wrong, but then everybody washes their hands politically saying it wasn't my decision, or they were, culpable deniability, as I've referred to before. And it ends up that it just financially hurts the business, and nobody is really actually defining the problem that created it to be a problem for the business. So
and this comes down to the same thing that I talk to a lot about other people that I've been in this industry a long time with. It still blows my mind how hotels are staffed based on the size of a business that they are. If you compare them to any business of equal size or smaller, they are staffed in a completely different manner of expertise to maximize the business's health and profitability and long-term viability. And yet in the hotel space, you have these what are basically medium to large size businesses that are completely underinvested in the areas that most other industry or business owners find to be the most crucial aspect of their ability to compete.
Right. But it's a fragmentation, right? You've got between the brand, the management company, and the owner, you've got who's going to pay for this, and everybody's trying to. Well, everything gets pushed down.
That causes
eventually,
a lot
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, that causes a lot of it. It also is like, who's your master? Because most
Right.
hotels have multiple masters and they're not aligned in goal.
Yeah. Right.
And so therefore, and then aspects of the employee base answer up to different masters, so they're completely malaligned.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is this: if you own a business that turns 10, 15, 20 plus $1 million a year in revenue, you should
That's a
always be asking
good-sized business.
yourself for anything that proves to be crucial for competitive advantage or profitability. Do you have the best people taking care of that stuff for you? And in most cases in the hotel industry, the answer is no. You have someone who was really good at something that you did not train well, but because they were really good at that something, they're now responsible for this other thing, and you're not giving them the tools to be successful. And yet
That's right.
you're sitting there wondering why your lunch is getting eaten by these other companies like OTAs and anything that's kind of stepped into the world. It's because they're investing differently in their business than a hotel is. A hotel is still most hotels are run as a very small business.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
the smallest of small businesses. Even these large revenue hotels are run as a very small business.
No, and you're as young as you are. You don't remember carbon copies, but
I do.
But
credit card
Yeah,
went down, and you had to do the.
No. You guys don't remember. You guys aren't old enough to know mimeograph machines.
I remember mimeograph
don't
machines.
know
The
that.
smell was awesome. But anyway, the point of it is that a lot of times, and actually, Bonnie, I have to give credit to Bonnie Buchheiser out of the Rocket programs. She's the one who refers to this in her presentation. It's called carbon copy training. You may have paid for training on a platform when you first got the platform, but the person that got directly trained from that platform has long since gone. They trained what they knew or learned from it and handed it to the next person, who in turn, whatever part they kept. And so, you're fourth generation down, that your training was really a carbon copy of the little pieces that we remember from the previous training. And then when you go to ownerships or anybody else that's responsible for the financial decision on this, they're like, well, we've already paid for training. That person and 3 people past them are long gone. This platform is underutilized. It hasn't been, whatever it is, and you're well from using the usability of it just in the simple process.
I'll give you a perfect example of I disrupted that behavior recently for one of our clients, because they happened to mention to me that they were changing their PMS. And I was like, oh, wow.
Decision.
I mean, and this is a big hotel. Like, this would affect over 500 people on their staff.
Wow.
And they're picking.
So what did they change from to? You have to say that.
They haven't yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
going from Agilysys to Opera.
Okay.
So, I mean, listen, neither one of those are overly better or worse than the other, as far as I'm concerned. So I asked.
But they're both big, robust PMSs, yeah. So.
Right, and they're also huge checks to write, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I asked them, did you go department by department and validate what your problems are with Agilysys, and then research that those problems are solved in Opera?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so why are you changing? Because we hate this. Well, what is that? Tell me, dig into like what makes up the detail of this sentiment.
Right.
Oh, no one actually knows. And oh, by the way, we checked and we hate it, and Agilysys fixed it 3 versions ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's no longer no longer the issue. And then I asked, okay, so has anyone dug into the cause and effect of this change? Like all the different things you have connected business-wise, you're a complex hotel. Like, have you looked into your point of sale system? Oh my gosh, we have to change our point of sale system. We just bought this one last year. Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Well,
so
they
now,
might not have to change it, but they got to re-interface.
Well, here's
they
what
may
happened,
run into some
because
interesting stuff.
Here's what happened. A group of people were really excited about a couple pieces of functionality of Opera. They put out like, hey, Opera's the best property management system. We want to change to that. Most other people who should have had a say in it were thinking in their heads, we're never going to approve this kind of spend, so whatever, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
And they almost like moved without knowing why. And I said to them, I said, listen, all I want you to do is document everything you dislike about Agilysys and research, is it fixable before you move? Because even if you find that it's not, and that opera is the answer, that is what you're going to lean on when the opera implementation goes sideways a few times and starts costing more money. That's what's going to stop people from getting fired, because you're going to be able to say the fundamental business decision was made because this
Yeah.
impacts us by this, and the cost of opera is this, so it was a good business decision. They were
Right.
going to move forward without actually fundamentally understanding why they were moving forward, to the
Right.
tune of like almost $1 million in known spend. That's the
Right, yeah.
known spend that this
Yes.
changeover
Let alone
would
the ripple
cost.
effects.
It's
of
amazing,
everything else.
amazing when you don't have objectives and you don't have strategies, but you have action. And
Yeah. Well, I'll even one more layer to this too, is that when you start talking about, when you start doing debriefings and discoveries with people or clients, and you're asking about things, and we did that. Oh, okay, yeah, that was terrible. Well, what was about? I never produced anything. Okay, did you dissect that afterwards as to why it didn't produce, or what was wrong, or what?
yeah.
No, it just didn't. And so that's one thing. Then the other is like, so how long did you try that? Oh, a couple years ago. Okay. How much do you think the world's changed in the past 6 months?
So-
maybe that idea
So,
was bad.
I'll
then,
give you another one of those life lessons. This one's not as eloquent.
Ed's tips of the day.
My very first job as a young teenager was working at an auto body shop that my uncle owned. So my uncle was that working hard, came up through auto body type, hardened type of guy. And I forget what it was, but I was making an excuse. And then I gave him my opinion on what he was thinking. And he said, Ed, opinions, they're like assholes. Everyone's got one. A lot of them stink.
Yeah. It is kind of a quotable one. That is a quotable one. But yes,
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
end,
Kind of crude, but here's the thing. The problem is most decisions are made on opinions which have no basis in fact.
well,
Right.
and it goes to also the politics that if your boss doesn't like something, inherently you're going to be skeptical at least, if not just endorsing and validating your boss's opinion at worst, because in the world of politics, it's better to be aligned with your boss than it is to be not. And so a lot of times,
Why
even if
I
you
have
may know
never
better,
worked for someone.
no, well, no, neither. I mean,
That's right.
my favorite word is why. Why do we keep doing that? Why is that? Why did we do that before? Why do we keep doing it this way? And probably that's the reason why I'm so popular with some
I
people
like to
these days.
ask, what's the goal?
Yeah, what's the?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to
Let
if
me
I get
tell
that,
you,
what would I do with it?
That's every consulting project I work on. That is the first question, because again, wow, I've got this really sophisticated model that says, oh, if you have a project, you kind of put, what are you trying to accomplish? So you wind up with an objective. What are the strategies you're trying to do? Okay, we've got that down. Then what are the expected results? Right, which
Well,
is
yeah.
always a very important missing aspect of this. And then you do it, and after you're done, you look at it and go, wow, what were the actual results? Where were the gaps? What would we do differently? Really, really revolutionary stuff.
Well,
But
and
the
then-
number of companies who fail to do that, and then they're like, oh, we need help. We're in this. It's like, well, yeah, maybe you did, even if you did the beginning stuff and you didn't look at it, they don't learn from what they did last time, and they
No,
lose
to-
it. And
to-
again,
to
with
Ed's-
turnover, it's a killer.
To Ed's point, sometimes there's a sentiment that's built that you don't even know the source of the sentiment. I've gotten times where I've talked to people and they're mad about something. Well, why are you mad about it? Well, it doesn't do such and such, or it doesn't. And it ends up turning out that the people that informed them about the
sucks.
product, were the people that had the sentiment, and they inherited it from somebody else that had the sentiment. And there was maybe one thing back in the day that, to your point, Ed, was fixed 3 years later. That created this sentiment of why this is a crappy thing.
Or they
So-
work somewhere else, and they came in and said, "Oh, they've got this really."
I'm
cool
familiar with
thing."
this stuff and not this stuff, so I like that stuff, not this stuff.
And it might be a really good, unique, differentiating feature, which is fine. That's great. But what about all the other stuff that you may wind up, losing? Where you go, oh yeah, they aren't very good at that. What's that?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, guest accounting. Oh.
One-way integration with Delphi
Yeah.
was one of the key differences they uncovered, and this is a group house.
Yeah.
And I was like, so it doesn't have a synchronous Delphi connection. Nope. So once it's moved, once it's pushed,
Yeah.
it's not in Delphi anymore.
Well, it goes to the fact that anytime somebody that's brought into a position they bring their favorite toys with them, or at least their opinions of their favorite toys. I've watched agencies get yanked out of companies just because the person that's now in charge of those decisions didn't. They have a preference to a relationship they have with another agency. That their current agency is not doing anything necessarily wrong. It's just it's not the agency that this people like working with, and it's a shame because the first thing I do whenever I talk with clients is to listen to what they're doing, who they're using, and not come in with, oh, those people suck and this is what you should do. It's more like maybe in your environment with them, they're great. So let me understand what it is they're doing that you, to your point, Robert, what's good, what's bad, what works, what doesn't work. Let's identify the issues, put the strings to it, and start seeing, is there a solution that can be fixed in place, or do you really need to replace something? So, yeah.
Well, and they just don't bring that. They also bring people, right? Who used to work for you. Hey, here's my number 2 guy who's, whatever. And they're on the team. And again, maybe that's good. You've got fresh blood.
I've been on the benefit side of that, and I've been on the negative side of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's
a lot.
But that's a very common tendency where all of a sudden, and actually the interesting thing is you can see it now. You look at the loyalty landscape, all the ex-Starwood people who now again, the head of the Starwood program's now the head of the Marriott program, right? But there are a whole pile of other people are now out there heading all sorts of all the other programs. Now maybe that was great, but I don't know. That's kind of one philosophy is now kind of seeming to run all the programs, and people are kind of running the same, aggressively running the same direction. So,
well, gentlemen, I think all of our topics. I think we're good.
I was hoping in the next 15 minutes we could have done that real deep dive on blockchain, though, Lauren. You had that thing. So
I did pop it up. I just
you know how many people send me articles on blockchain now from watching
the only one reason why I grabbed that one was because it made a very good point. People are no surprise, misinterpreting blockchain as an understanding of concept to what these companies are doing and calling it blockchain, and the fact that it's
funny how that happened.
Yeah, funny how that did too. So that was the reason why the article caught my eye. Was like, they're talking about how the use of blockchain is like, no, it's interneted into your system is the antithesis of what blockchain is.
The integrations.
But to be fair, this is also the industry where most things that are labeled as BI are nothing more than reports.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, anyway, for the people that left, we have Stuart Butler with Field Travel. We appreciate Stuart being able to squeeze us in between two of his things for the day. Holly Zoba with Signature Series Worldwide, Senior Vice President of them. Darlene Rondeau, who is an amazing content person. I mean, truly gifted in that sense, and been a vanguard of it in the industry for. I can't even remember a time that she wasn't a vanguard in the industry for, to be honest with you. I mean,
which is weird because she's only 24 years old.
I know, right? How is that possible for that age?
So to put it in a way I think she would appreciate, if you're not content with your content, you should probably know Darlene.
Wow. Wow. Ooh. Wow. Wow. Yeah. But no, she is an amazing resource for that. I don't know.
I read that as if you aren't content with your content, and I was really confused.
Well, let's put it this way. I know I have her Gmail account. I'm not at liberty to say that I can actually directly share that. So you can reach any of us if you want to reach Darlene right now. I'll ask Darlene later. I should have asked her up front what's the best way for us to let people know that how to reach out to her. But I'll make sure that gets cleared up. It'll be on the show notes because really, genuinely, truly, if you want to know how to look at your content from the perspective of usability and value proposition, she is by far an amazing resource for that. By far, one of the best in the industry, really. So definitely make sure that gets clear for it. Now, gentlemen, Mr. Robert, if people want to know about the world of Rock Cheetah and the amazing historical knowledge that you possess.
And not just historical knowledge. I am just wrapping up this afternoon a 30-page document for a major organization on their blockchain strategy, working on their blockchain strategy. And it's actually quite serious.
Would you say that much like Oklahoma's basketball team, you would play the position of insight and foresight?
Oh, no, I think more historian and I'm trying to think of it's not soothsayer, but it's
scribe. I say you're a scribe.
Scribe.
Reading the tea leaves.
Yes. People come to you. Actually, you're on the mountain. You already got part of the white hair going. You just need the white beard. I think you're there.
Yeah. I shouldn't have shaved. I could have done the white beard. That's
I
very
do
true.
like the fact that you're, at least on my screen, your
You're
image is
frozen.
frozen
Yeah, you are
for
frozen.
Yeah, I
like
am.
2 minutes now, and it's like, oh, I
Oh,
shouldn't have said anything. There it is.
There it is. It's
There
still
we go.
frozen.
Like, you look
broke the camera.
Like someone just like.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm about to punch somebody. That's the face it's like.
And Mr. Ed, if people want to know all the wise and insightful things that you know, and flip
I'm going to be
and
honest
everything
with you. You don't want to follow me socially for the next few weeks as I vent about the ridiculousness of college football.
Oh, UCF. Yes, they are.
Yes.
They're doing okay.
The only fan base that's undefeated and yet completely defeated.
Why? What happened?
Because of
think
the
that-
garbage of college football.
Yes.
Oh, you'll see this
They
week
were raw.
when it's
I'm
officially.
gonna look.
Oh no, there's so many things, so many levels of like. All of us are depressed, and most of us want to lose tomorrow because winning will be worse for us long term than losing would be short term. So anyway, so stay away from my social, which is Edward St. Ange, for at least the next few days. After that, back to normal.
Back to
But
normal.
he might post cute pictures of his kids and stuff, which is all very heartwarming and very
Which
nice.
yeah, amazing.
Sometimes.
As long as he's not in the frame, it's great.
It's wonderful. As I'm sure all of you feel about this show. And
Which is why Tim hasn't been participating. No, that's so sad.
That's it. For archives of this show, you obviously can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. And there's literally 121 shows you can go back and listen to of multiple hours per show. And so we welcome you to do that. And any questions, or if
and
you'd
yet
like to join
only
the show.
minutes of quality.
Only, yes. Hours of content, but minutes of quality.
Minutes, Ed,
I
I don't
need to-
know. I
need to
think
make
you
that
need
some
to
sort of slogan.
substantiate that. That was plural on the minutes. I don't.
Well,
I,
I figure if every show had 1 second
Hmm.
of quality,
Oh,
121 shows
aggregated.
has 2
Aggregated.
minutes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Well, you-
aggregated across all the shows. Now I understand.
All the
I
shows.
thought,
minute.
I thought you were
across.
talking about. I thought you were talking on a per show basis. I'm so
But-
sorry.
Well, and if you go by hours, I mean,
Oh.
it's a smaller percentage.
Do you realize that we could we now have enough content online that you could watch us nonstop for over 2.5 weeks now. So North Korea knows that. It's part of their new reindoctrination program. They just make somebody sit and watch, like out of Clockwork Orange, our entire
Talking
series of
heads.
shows.
But they're not saying anything.
So for everyone who binge watched what, The Handmaid's Tale and then Stranger
We're a perfect fit for you. We're a perfect fit for
Game of
binge watching.
Thrones and now
You won't be
and
able to put us down.
Westworld isn't out yet. Yeah, so okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyway, but gentlemen, thank you so very
Oh,
much.
and I will be out next week because I will be in Las Vegas. Actually, I'll be traveling back from Las Vegas for the annual Expedia Partner Conference.
Oh,
Ah,
big
nice.
party.
Yeah, big party. Well, I think let's see. Now next
So-
week we
So Ed,
don't.
should we record some of this and play it back for the Expedia people about if you put Expedia in here, would you do that? No, you'd be crazy if you were.
Well,
I didn't
the
say
other-
they'd be crazy to do it. I would just say that the fact is that they wouldn't put Expedia in, but they would put
That's right.
Google in, is crazy.
is crazy.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Now I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we get Hayden. The 15th, I think, is his next available window that he mentioned.
We'll see.
We'll see if that happens. Yeah, since it's been 5 times in a row or 4 times in a row that we've got bumped with him, or he
Yep.
bumped us, or yeah. So I'm giving him one more last shot.
Which
Hayden,
is
if you're
really
watching
messed
this,
with our content planning.
it's pick and drop and yank and pull, and yeah. So this is like
And-
the last
oh.
window. After this, will be like, maybe not.
We forgot to ask Ed about the Infinity War trailer. I think, gosh,
Oh
I
my
thought.
gosh.
Yeah.
This shows you how distracted I am about college football right now.
Okay, I got one question with all this though. Why does Captain America not have a shield on the when they're doing the run to attack? That he's missing his shield. Did they?
I don't want
Did that
to
already
ruin it. If I give you the real answer of what's going to happen in Infinity War, because this story has been written, like
Yes.
this is it would ruin what's coming, and what's coming is pretty cool.
Okay, I'll leave it that up.
Yeah.
I'll wait for
So
it. I
if
was
you
just
want
surprised.
me to spoil it for you, I'll happily do it in private. Oh wait, we're on the show.
You can tell me now. What's up?
Same thing, not much different.
Same difference. Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you so very much for the time. Ed, we'll miss you, but we're glad to have you back after
Gentlemen,
that.
have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Robert. It's great to see you in frozen form.
I like that shot.
Yeah, that's offensive. We're gonna just screen
That's
capture.
a good look for me. Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you all again.
Bye.